Today from the Ugly Studio, it's another polycarbonation episode, and we're going to be talking about the music of a man whose philosophy is too many guitars are never enough. It's the music of Bill Nelson and Be-Bop Deluxe, and maybe even Channel Light Vessel as we explore the career of one of the greatest of the British guitarists. A supremely accomplished guitarist, and pretty good on keyboards as well, Bill Nelson is one of the most prolific music makers, well, ever. A pioneer in rock, art rock, experimental, and new age music, Bill typically releases at least 2 albums of music per year. At least that's the current way he does things. Let's dig into his story. Nelson came to public attention via the success of his band Be-Bop Deluxe in the 1970s. Following a solo album called Northern Dream, Be-Bop's Axe Victim LP brought some independent spirit to 1974. That record was considered a commercial and artistic disappointment, and Bill recruited a new band lineup for Futurama, produced by Roy Thomas Baker, who would later work with Queen and the Cars.
Maybe we'll make music in dreamland tonight.
Futurama established Be-Bop's lush sound and retro-futuristic outlook, but Nelson didn't think Baker had a grasp of the band's mindset.
Feel so dizzy underneath your open skies.
EMI Harvest offered John Leckie, an up-and-coming engineer who wanted a seat in the producer's chair, as the production chief for the third LP, and that one was named Sunburst Finish, and it referred to a popular high-gloss paint option of electric guitars, as some of you will already know if you're into electric guitars. Sunburst took inspiration from successful songs from the preceding album like Sister Seagull and Made in Heaven to create sonic soundscapes with sound effects and studio trickery to spin Bill's stories of flying machines and dream sequences, the light and dark romance of the future, basically. It was often seen through the lens of 1930s streamlined modern age style and speculation. The kind of future dreams seen in early science fiction films and pulp magazines, those things that sold for 10 cents back in the 1920s and 30s. The song Ships in the Night, a deliberate try for a hit single, broke into the UK Top 25. Bill considered the 45 RPM single of Ships catchy, but kind of a minor song. However, when heard along with the elegant Heavenly Homes on the album, the two songs are linked to make what I think is an arresting listen. Touring in support of the record, the band poked its nose into the American market and had some success. Although the effort of touring the States and the relationship with California's Capitol Records seems to have caused a lot of stress, which was reflected in the song cycle of Modern Music from Be-Bop's follow-up recording in 1977. Other tracks on the Modern Music LP followed the pattern from Sunburst Finish, a blend of 1930s Art Deco and 1950s Space Age style with even more production effects tossed into the mix. What could be thought of as overproduction for most rock bands seemed like the point of the Be-Bop Deluxe approach. Popularity and touring were wearing on everyone by 1978, and both Bill Nelson and John Leckie wanted to be free of the Guitar Hero box that many fans put them in. EMI Harvest Records talked them out of breaking up the band on the promise of future support for a Bill Nelson solo career. The deal arrived at was that the group would do one final album that would be their most ambitious ever. For extra inspiration, John Leckie scouted out an elegant mansion in the south of France to serve as a residence for all the band members, along with any family they wanted to bring along. Villa St. George, or maybe it's Villa St. George, had multiple bedrooms, a kitchen, dining room, and outside space enough to accommodate the Rolling Stones mobile recording truck. There were extra rooms that were used as echo chambers to enhance the sound, and views of the Mediterranean Sea from select windows just for extra added inspiration. Yes, you can hear the Be-Bop Deluxe sound on their final recording, Drastic Plastic, but Bill pushed for an adventurous approach, encouraging experimentation and the use of new technologies popping up towards the end of the decade. Songs like Electrical Language use a guitar synthesizer, tape loops, oh that's so DIY, isn't it? And the new polyphonic electronic keyboards that allowed Andy Clark to play chords instead of just doing it one note at a time, like on the earlier keyboards. The song Surreal Estate even included sounds of utensils from the Villa St. George kitchen used as percussion instruments. This was the last album released by Be-Bop Deluxe, although a best of collection with unreleased tracks came along later. That was called the Best of and the Rest of. Bill Nelson, Brother Ian, Andy Clark, and John Leckie teamed up for the stripped-down, electronically propelled Sound on Sound album in 1979. The band was now called Red Noise, and the music embraced a jumpy new wave aesthetic with songs like Don't Touch Me, I'm Electric, and Furniture Music that seemed to trade Be-Bop Deluxe's lush romanticism for jagged tales of alienation and isolation. Red Noise and Be-Bop Deluxe were left out of the 1980s CD boom as EMI discontinued their albums. Now this is interesting. Nelson and Leckie had completed a second Red Noise album which EMI refused to release. This was mentioned to a record exec who asked to listen to it and liked it well enough to have it issued by Mercury Records in the UK, where it became a top 10 album. It was called Quit Dreaming and Get on the Beam. It was credited to Bill Nelson, not Red Noise. With the income from Quit Dreaming and its follow-up, that was called The Love That Whirls, Bill updated his home studio and he christened it the Echo Observatory. There were a series of solo EPs and LPs issued on major record labels and some on Bill's own Cocteau label. These included a 4 LP set that were recorded in 1981 at the Nelson home studio, but didn't see release until the middle of the decade. These LPs, later CDs, included Pavilions of the Heart and Soul. Very simple in nature, Bill commented on the Dreamsville website as follows: "The set is presented unpolished and complete with all its technical deformities, for which I offer no apology. Each piece of music was dealt with as an infant deals with building blocks, and instinct was always given precedence over reason." Bill Nelson's skills as a producer continued to develop as he worked with several British groups, including the Skids and soon-to-be MTV stars A Flock of Seagulls in 1982. His guitar skills were also heard on Naughty Boys, the 1983 LP from Yellow Magic Orchestra, the band which brought Ryoichi Sakamoto to the attention of the music world and introduced Bill Nelson to his future wife, Emiko, who was then married to the group's drummer, Yukihiro Takahashi. The middle of the decade saw the ever-restless music maker make a move from new wave nervous energy to new age tranquility. Enigma Records released Chance Encounters in the Garden of Lights, which was probably the peak recording of Bill's new age period. This 2-disc set of brightly colored CDs contained 38 instrumental tracks meant to promote mindful calm. The unusual album focused on textures, included many audio clips from outside sources, and was described by its composer as attempting nothing and existing purely for itself.
Calling heaven, over. Nothing can cut this power off, for it is always operating.
The 1980s became the 1990s, and Bill Nelson's solo albums took a turn back to rock music with the guitars as the stars. When a try at forming another group fell apart, Bill's friends encouraged him to release the demo tapes with some editing. The result was Blue Moons and Laughing Guitars. This CD had some good tunes like The Invisible Man and The Unforgettable Girl, but it definitely sounded unfinished, with rough draft lyrics and drum machine rhythms. The year 1994 brought the mind of Nelson together with Roger Eno, another forward-thinking musician who had collaborated with his brother Brian on several projects. Roger was then working with Kate St. John of the band Dream Academy, and by the time Bill joined them, they had also recruited All Saints Records label mate Laraji and cellist Mayumi Takibana. The new group was named Channel Light Vessel, and that name refers to a type of light ship. It's kind of like a floating lighthouse. The first album was the intriguing Automatic. It's a good listen, but the group's second recording, Excellent Spirits, that's in 1996, that's the one to hear. It brought all the talents of its members together in a recording that encouraged repeat listens with attractive melodies and an adventurous edge. I'm telling you this because I think you'd really enjoy it. Bill's voice was featured, but Roger, Kate, and even Laraji, who wasn't really known as a vocalist, he was kind of an avant-garde musician, he joined in too. Sounds pretty good. Bill's commentary on his Dreamsville website expresses a lot of affection for that group, which had much too short of a lifespan. He says Channel Light Vessel was one of the most interesting and satisfying collaborations of my career, an unlikely, but in retrospect, extremely fruitful collaboration between people who genuinely had a lot of love and respect for each other. I'm very proud to have been associated with the project. Side note time, everybody. About 20 years later, another interesting band calling itself Channel Light Vessel Automatic appeared. But that was not related to the CLB of the 1990s, so don't get them mixed up. 2 mid-1990s solo albums were recorded at Fairview Studios in Yorkshire, with John Spence engineering and Bill playing almost all the instruments. These were the all-instrumental Practically Wired, or How I Became Guitar Boy, in 1995, and the fairly remarkable After the Satellite Sings in 1996. In the words of the creator, I wrote the music as I recorded it, basically putting ideas to tape as soon as they came to me. The cover art for Satellite Sings CD established Bill's affection for the 1950s, "Oh, we're looking forward to a bright future" style, often using vintage illustrations which might be combined with his own photographs, and they're altered as desired. Not only did young William grow up in the 1950s, but he was also influenced in the 1980s by a pictorial history of the era called Populux by author Thomas Hine. These were the last recordings Bill Nelson made in outside studios, but far, far from the last albums he was to release. Throughout the 21st century, his home studio has produced a steady stream of compact discs and digital downloads available from the Dreamsville website. That's billnelson.com. They're also available on Bandcamp's website and occasionally from Cherry Red Records as physical media. I don't think it will come as a surprise to anyone that Bill Nelson accumulated many fans over the years, and they demanded more Bill. So there was an annual festival called Nelsonica that featured exclusive merchandise and live performances, with a DVD video concert appearing in the year 2012. This was a live show with a full rock ensemble called the Gentlemen Rocketeers, including woodwind player Theo Travis, and featuring quite a few guitars from the extensive Nelson collection. Even though the performance was done in a recording studio called Metropolis, the band had a very difficult time hearing each other because the studio's monitoring system kept failing. They soldiered bravely on and made it through the evening, and the audience was delighted. The DVD sounds quite good, but that's probably thanks to many corrections made by Bill and engineer John Spence in the audio production afterwards. A loss of hearing in one ear put a stop to Bill's live performances, but he continues to release new albums, mainly on his Sonolux label. Some of my favorites include Illuminated at Dusk and Wah Wah Galaxy, but there are many others, each with its own personality. For more eclectic music that rocks, catch the Electrical Radio program, commercial-free, Fridays and Saturdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Time. Finding us is as easy as 1, 2, 3. We're at 22westmedia.com. Don't forget to click the drop-down link for FM HD3, electrical-radio.com, and on Facebook.